Hi, my name is Jeff, and welcome to my workshop. Today we're going to continue work on this Athearn Blue Box SD9 for the Milwaukee Road by installing the handrails, the number boards, and adding some detail. We're going to start with the number boards. The first step I did was remove the plastic pieces from inside the shell so that I could paint the number boards with a flat black paint. And then I gave them a shot of gloss coat so that the decals would apply properly, and then installed decals on the number boards. If you need to see videos, I will leave a link to a decaling video in the description below. So with the number boards ready, it's time to install them. And these simply fit into the shell. You just need to make sure you have them set up so that they're facing the correct direction when you install them. Turn the shell over and you can take the piece and it just slides in. There's a couple of protrusions for the headlight lenses that stick out the front of the shell to help get everything aligned and the number boards in place. With that done, we can do both sides. If you're not happy with the way they look, then you can always go back, take it out, reinstall it till you get it just right. As you can see, this one gave me a little bit of trouble getting it into place, but eventually it got in there. To make sure they stayed, I used a touch of solvent cement at the seam of the clear plastic and the base to hold them in place. With those in, we're going to turn our attention to some detail on the roof. The unit came with a plastic horn that was mounted to the cab. I actually filled that hole, and we're going to mount a new horn on the other. I've got some lift rings that I may or may not install, lift bars rather, that I may or may not install on the front of the truck, front of the unit. I'll make that decision during final assembly after the couplers are in place. So lift rings, Athearn puts little nubs there to simulate the lift rings, but those can be removed easily and holes drilled and lift rings can be installed. Today I'm using some from Tichy Train Group, which is what I had on hand. Detail Associates, I believe, makes a wire lift ring, formed wire lift ring, and if I had those are my preferred lift rings, only because they hold up better. But these are molded plastic and they look good and will hold up just fine on this locomotive. So I use some flush cutting sprue cutters, tweezer style, to cut off the nub, and then a push pin to make an indentation to help prevent the drill from wandering when I start drilling out the hole. That, I just put my drill bit in hand. You can use a small drill bit in a pin vise, or I have a hand cranked drill that I picked up at a local hardware store. It was in a dollar bin years ago. Haven't seen one of these since, but I find it extremely handy, and it works quickly without going so fast that it melts the plastic. Once the hole is drilled, I'll remove the lift ring from the sprue, again using my sprue cutters. And keep my finger on them just to keep them from flying off. And then grab them with a pair of tweezers and insert it into the hole. And since this is a plastic lift ring, I can secure it with plastic solvent cement. If this was a metal wire-formed lift ring, then you would have to use CA to do that. With the lift ring in place, and just make sure it's turned so that it's oriented correctly. You want to make sure they're all facing the same direction. Generally, these will sit with the lift ring lined up along the axis of the locomotive so that the holes are to the sides. And then, keeping my finger over it, I just add a drop of the solvent cement and let that dry. While that's drying, we can do the rest of them. And we'll be back once that is done. You can see I already did the ones on the short hood. And then we've got one more here, a couple here. And then 4 at the end of the long hood. Okay, with the lift rings installed, I also drilled a hole for the new horn, and I painted it a grimy black that will look good on this model. So next step is going to be to remove the horn from the brass sprue. Since this is a lost wax brass casting, I want to use rail nippers to do that. Get a nice clean cut. And then place the horn in place. Prototype photos of the Milwaukee Road SD9 show that the hood was placed, the horn was on the long hood just behind the cab, with the horns facing towards the bells of the horns facing towards the rear of the locomotive. So that's the way I'm installing it. I couldn't find a photo of a good photo of a roof shot of the SD9, so my positioning is based on my best guess from what I saw. Once that's in place, just a drop of CA to hold, right where it came through the shell, will hold it in place. While that's drying, we can put the CA away. You don't want to leave that uncapped or you'll have a solid block. Ask me how I know. The next step is going to be the handrails. These are the Athearn standard handrails and stanchions. So I got the end installed. I'm going to show you how I did that. The handrails themselves just fit into pre-drilled holes, molded holes in the frame. The stanchions then are installed into the frame, and then the tops are bent over the handrail wire. So I've got this long handrail installed here, and now we just needed to start adding the stanchions. I've got the first one there up on the step to help hold the stanchion in place there. Now with the Athearn rails, you'll notice it's hard to see here, but the top has a little bit of a bend around it that will fit around that, whereas the bottom is more of a squared corner. So you want to make sure you have these fitted correctly. If you don't want to use the Athearn, A-Line makes complete sets for this model. Handrail made from brass. It's the handrails and stanchions. or if you have issues like you'll see I did with some of the stanchions where they bent in the wrong place or didn't get around or bent the wrong direction and broke, or just went flying, which they can do. A-Line also sells just the stanchions, and I'll be using some of those on here as well before we're done. But I just use the needle nose pliers to tighten it. Then to keep them in place, I'm just using a soldering iron. I keep my soldering iron hot. Be very careful to keep the tip away from the plastic model, and try and get in and out as quickly as you can while you're soldering. Warm up your joint. Let your solder flow in there, and then remove your heat, and you will have them locked in place. So I got these 4 done on the front, and then I'll work my way around the model getting all of them done. And as I said, you can see I lost a few and broke a few, so I will be adding the A-Line stanchions. I've ordered them, just waiting for them to arrive. Okay, the last thing I want to do with the handrails and stanchions is to paint them. So I'm going to paint the ones that are installed. I'm using black paint along the handrails and stanchions. Milwaukee Road used white at the stairs, so I will be doing that as well before we're done. And I'm just using a micro brush and just rubbing it along the edge of the metal stanchions and handrails. Okay, with the handrails painted, it's time to install the LEDs. Before I started, I tested these. These are pre-wired LEDs. I bought them on eBay or on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in them. And then I used poster putty to hold them in place. I just picked this up at a local big box store, Target, Walmart, both carry it. I think Woodland Scenics makes something similar in black, so you can do that as well. But I press the LED into a small piece of the poster putty and wrap the wire around so it's all secure. And make sure my LED is where I want it on there. And then just press that into place against the clear plastic number board headlight piece. And get it in so it covers for the most part, so you don't have too much light leakage, and so that the wiring is secured underneath it. The last thing I like to do once I have that in place is to test the LEDs. Easiest way to do that is with a 3-volt button battery. Make sure you have the positive and negative attached to the right sides of the correct sides of the battery, and you can see the LED lights in there. And when we turn it to the front, you see it. The headlights can glow slightly, which is exactly what we're looking for. So with this done, that wraps up this part of the project. In the next episode, we will be installing a decoder and doing all the wiring for both the LEDs and the motor and the pickups. So please make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss that episode. And thank you for watching.